What up, players? It's Warboss Tay up at this mud. Here with my buddy Rasputin, and today we're gonna paint him up to this standard. So here are the colors that you are going to need. 1. Lead Belcher. 2. Balthazar Gold. 3. Chaos Black. 4. Just a tiny little bit of Rakarth Flesh. Are there any other main colors we used? Nope. 5. Oh, not Mephiston. Red. Oh yeah, Mephiston Red. Corn Red. And then you do actually use Mephiston Red a little bit. And then for the washes, we use 3. Agrax Earthshade. Nuln Oil. And Seraphim Sepia. So we get our Legionnaire of the 4th Legion, our Warsmith here, up to this standard. Now we're gonna just let him kind of dry off for a while. So thanks for watching, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh man, players, I am so excited. Today we are tackling the Chaos Warsmith. And what better color scheme to give this guy than the Iron Warriors color scheme. That's right, today we are getting started with the 4th Legion of Space Marines. And just like the 3rd Legion, the Iron Warriors, these guys turned traitor. So we're going to start with Lead Belcher, and I'll talk while I'm going. First thing you might notice after assembling the model and basing it, I spray primed it with a coat of Duplicolor Matte Gray spray primer. And it seems like I missed a couple spots, but that's okay, we're just gonna get started. 4th Legion. They're known as the Iron Warriors, and when the 20 Space Marine Legions were on the Great Crusade in the 30th Millennium, they were really good specialists at sieges and breaking sieges. So if there was a world that needed to be have their defenses taken down and they were all holed up in these really nice fortifications, then the Iron Warriors would get called in and bust down the doors, build all these trenches and heavy artillery bombard their victims into submission. And I'm doing my research on the 4th Legion and on the fluff because I'm such a big, fan of the fluff of these stories, these characters, and it's really interesting how these guys, their Primarch, his name was Perturabo, how they started off as just being, like, their specialty was breaking sieges. So they would get called all over the galaxy to, like I said, to ship in a whole bunch of heavy artillery to set up behind the lines and just kind of blast the enemy into submission until they could, some of the more specialized Space Marine Legions, the ones that dealt with all the heavy close combat fighting, like the Word Bearers, the World Eaters, and all those guys could go in and sweep up and hog all the glory for themselves. And so, sometimes, in fact all the time, they would be asked to leave what was called a garrison force behind, or some Space Marines that would stay on the world after the invasion and just kind of keep an eye on the population, make sure they don't rebel. And so after years and years and years of this, and it also in the fluff too, on the Lexicanum, where I found mostly all of this information, it said that nobody really knew why Perturabo, the Primarch, was just so okay with letting his legion always be tasked with the difficult, backbreaking, very boring work of besieging different fortifications. And I have to be honest, full disclosure, I have not read any of the novels for the what am I talking about? For the Iron Warriors, for the 4th Legion, basically all of my research is, the extent of my research is looking at the articles and just checking the sources that they cite. So a lot of these are from the novels, from old Index Astartes articles, stuff like that. So, oh, look at this super bent exhaust port back here. That's not good. So the Iron Warriors, as the years passed on, and they were called more and more to just do all this really labor-intensive work and not really get any thanks or credit for it. All the credit went to the actual Marines who would storm the keeps and kill the warlords, while the Iron Warriors are left in the back with the artillery pieces. They eventually became resentful when Horus started his rebellion against the Imperium of Man. Then the story is that Horus kind of played on the resentment that Perturabo had in order to get him to join in on the rebellion. Oh, look at that axe. I thought I bent it back into place, but it's still all funky. Ooh, looks really bad on this side. Hopefully your Warsmith axe doesn't look this bad. And then what happened? So yeah, so he joined the rebellion, and the rest is history. The interesting thing is that most of these legions, the Chaos and the Loyalists, have a rival, and if not somebody that they actually absolutely truly hate and despise, then definitely they have a rival Primarch, one of their brothers, who is good at the opposite thing that they do. For example, the Space Wolves were very brutal, animalistic, barbaric. At the time, they were concerned with duty and honor and taking things at face value. And the opposite of that at the time, the one who they had the biggest rival with, was the Thousand Suns Legion, which was all about knowledge, magic, the exploring forbidden and hidden truths that you had to really use your brain to think about, and all that thinking wasn't good enough for the Space Wolves and the sons of Leman Russ. So they were diametrically opposed to each other, with the Iron Warriors being masters of siegecraft, long-range artillery, getting the job done, pounding the foe into submission. Their rival was with the Space Marine Legion, who was actually the most proficient at setting up defenses, and that would be the Imperial Fists, that were characterized, known for being firm and resolute in the face of challengers and being able to hold their ground, and just being able to hold up and go to ground and just kind of hold their ground against the enemy until they could defeat them. So by about now, your guys should be done, because all we're doing is just really slapping on the lead belcher. You want to make sure you check all the angles of your model so as to not miss any cracks and crevices. Even though we're going to be shading with known oil in just a bit, it's really good to make sure that you've covered everything in paint. So the Iron Warriors they were always proficient in technology, logic, and being able to apply knowledge and their brains to figuring out how to best solve problems. They're very left-brained thinking. They weren't like the word bearers, who were all about faith, and they also weren't frothing lunatics like the Space Wolves, or they didn't really give in to their emotions. They're all about the cold logic of the brain and thinking processes and stuff. So they weren't like the Night Lords who favored fear tactics, terror, using emotions against their emotions, the emotions of their victims against them. Because they're all about logic and cold processes, the Space Marines that they sent to become trained as Tech Marines with the Adeptus Mechanicus on Mars really took to it. Which is why they developed their own sort of caste system within the ranks of their legion when they went back, as known as Warsmiths, at least in the old fluff. Now they're called Warpsmiths, unfortunately. But yeah, what are you gonna do? So I'll tell you what we're going to do. The next step that we're going to take is we are going to do some gold detailing. So the color we're going to use is Balthazar Gold. Yeah, so the Imperial Fists were all about setting up defenses, fortifications. They are known for their defense of the palace on Terra, the Emperor's palace. And when the Iron Warriors got to Earth for the final stage of the siege, they saw it almost like their personal duty to tear it down, bombard it and assault it and break it down. There was always like a not so friendly rivalry between Rogel Dorn and Perturabo. And the question was always, were the Iron Hands good enough to break down the defenses of anything that the Imperial Fists had built? So by storming the Imperial Palace, taking the Imperial Palace, the Iron Warriors, by attacking the Imperial Palace, were kind of getting their moment to shine, saying, haha, we are the best, we are better than you. Now, game-wise, using a Warpsmith in battle, I remember when they first started coming out with the rumors for these guys, and they were supposed to be. I heard a lot on the forums, a lot of rumors traveling the rounds, saying that, oh yeah, these guys are supposed to be the Tech Marines of the Chaos Space Marine Army. And so a lot of people were excited to have Chaos Tech Marines. And just to finish up that little bit of the fluff, was that because the Iron Warriors are so logical and cold and unthinking and unfeeling, they really took to their training when they were training their tech priests back before the heresy. So we're taking our Balthazar Gold and we're painting up all of the trim in the armor now. Now you've got a lot of the trim and the armor is really easy to find. Just look for the over pieces of that are bordering the inner plates, and you should have a pretty good idea of what the trim is just by looking. If not, just follow along and I'll show you all the parts that are painted on the model in gold. There. It even says that this T-bar down here is in gold, according to the back of the model box cover. or at least if not gold, then a dark bronze. So we're going to paint it Balthazar gold for now. In fact, most of the gold is completely different from the gold on your Chaos Space Marine from the Empire's Children. So we're going to paint it a lot darker, a lot dirtier. Oh, I totally missed the inside of there. It's interesting because I painted a lot of, or I assembled this rather differently than a lot of the drawing says I should have. So I'm trying to figure out, like the mechadendrites I've glued on in different places. This Cape of Wires is just awesome. I really love it. All of these mechadendrites that look like they have beaks. Get the gold. Yeah, I love how very gothic and macabre they make these little pieces here look like skulls, screaming skulls. Really cool. Don't worry, like over here when you're painting the shoulder pad, if you make any mistakes, you can just go back in over with the silver paint, the lead belcher, in just a bit. I am making a ton of mistakes right now. Just kind of trying to get the initial base coats on. I'm painting the binding on this little steam vent back here. Gotta make sure that lead belcher is dry, so I might move on and come back. Got the rims of both shoulder pads. This little buckle down here, and this iron halo looking thing over it, as well as the chest grill and the 8-sided star on the chest plate itself. Yeah, so what kind of player would collect an Iron Warriors army? Well, if you are more interested in long-range bombardment, hammering your foes into submission, there are no squats in 40k anymore, there's no dwarves, but these guys are the next best thing, just kind of hanging back, shooting the snot out of the foe, and going in and cleaning up with their special weapons. That's another thing Iron Warriors are known for having lots of special weapons. Yeah, both knee pads and leg armor on both sides of the armor have lots of gold trim. So we're trying to get at that. It's like the middle of this drill part. Not the sides, but the middle. There's that. And then you've got these smokestacks on his back. So we're not painting the top, but we are painting the kind of detailing on this with the skulls, and we're painting that in Balthazar gold as well. Oh man, I started trying to go back, figure out where I left off with the annotations so that I can write, you know, the steps in the corners for people who would rather listen to their own music while painting and not listen to me ramble on. And so, man, the last time I did it was 7 pages of videos ago on my Ogre Kingdoms Brag the Gutsman Part 1. So as of the filming of this, I'm still trying to work on getting all of the annotations done for those. And I'm just like, oh man, this is so tedious, sitting down and writing down every single step, listening and writing down every single step. It's just a lot of hard work. So I hope you guys appreciate all the extra hours I'm gonna be putting in to try and keep everything current and relevant, I guess would be the best way to describe it. For now, just for completion's sake, I'm gonna paint in all of the stacks on both sides. Eventually we're gonna make these hollows on the sides. We're gonna color them black, but for now we will keep them open. It also says these skulls on the side of his cloak of wires should also be in gold. So the Iron Warriors, after they fell to chaos, they have never truly worshipped one of the four. It's quite obvious by the way they dress that the Emperor's children had given themselves up to Slanesh. And when we get to it, the Death Guard very obviously gave themselves to Nurgle. But the 4th Legion here, the Iron Warriors, did not claim any one god, but they supposedly worship all 4 of them as a pantheon. And some of these you just gotta make calls on what's part of the head and what's part of the jaw casing and this and that. I like how it shines. Shines so bright. I've been practicing my Hazard Strike freehand. Hopefully that comes out pretty well. Okay, we're almost done. We're going to use a little bit of corn red now for all the red bits. According to the box art, it just shows that the mechadendrites, like this guy here, like their tongues are red. And that don't make no sense to me, so I'm not going to do that. That is just too much. So the corn red is actually going to be for the wires. Get a little flash of color. It's interesting when you look on the back of the box. There are a couple of wires that have the same black and yellow hazard stripe pattern, but it's with black and red. So if you're a Chaos Space Marine player that prefers to hammer away from long distance using artillery, vehicles, heavy weapons, stuff like that, then Iron Warriors might be the army for you. This one. And there's that. And actually there's only one wire in the back that has this sort of black and red striped effect. So why don't we paint it right now? It's going to be really easy. It's this central one coming straight down the back here. We're going to be doing a diagonal hazard stripe pattern. So the best advice I can give when doing these hazard stripes is don't let the paint dry clumpy. If you need to use your wet palette, or if you need to spread the paint around, as soon as you get it on, then whatever you need to do, don't worry about it being perfect. Chances are it's probably not going to be perfect because you're painting on a curved surface, and unless you are super duper good and a lot better than me, then you're not going to get it, and you just want the rough idea of where the stripes are going to be. If you put too much paint on your brush, if you let it dry clumpy in one spot, then it's not going to look very nice. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting the paint on, and I'm letting it, and I'm spreading it out so it doesn't dry all clumpy. It's obviously really bad, so we're going to let that dry for a second, then we're going to come in with the Chaos Black. You want to make sure that your brush is completely clean. And then we are just going to go in. Oh, you can't even see. How about like that? We're going to go in. And you're just going to solidify the lines. This is where good brush control is really, really important, and you want to just make sure you've got the palms of your hands braced against each other, your forearms braced against the deck or the table. And just take your time. Your model's not going anywhere. Okay, and to highlight, take Mephiston Red. Now we're going to paint in the center. As much as possible. And this is where the optical illusion going to come in. Sometimes on the White Dwarf blog there's this Japanese Imperial Fists player. His models are always up on the What's New Today blog, and I think in one of his articles he talks about how he does hazard stripes and how to make it look like it's straight even if it's not. I think it was him. Pretty sure it was this Japanese guy. Okay, so that's it for the red. And we're going to highlight the black. See if we can find our Mechanicus standard gray. So that's this. We're going to do the same thing. Going to paint the center of our stripes. It's too bright. Change my mind, let's go back to black. Back in black. I hate the check. Been too long, I'm glad to be back. What we'll do is we'll highlight a little bit later, just the edges though, so we can keep the black look. Okay. Can we do anything else before we paint known oil? Nope. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do in this video is known oil. We're going to just give this guy a bath in it. There's actually two colors you're going to be using, known oil and Agrax Earthshade. Okay, and what I think we're going to start with is the Agrax Earthshade, because it'll be really easy to get the known oil, the black, in too many dark places. So whenever you're painting shades onto metallics, a good rule of thumb is not to start with the darkest color, which is known oil, because you might be tempted to create artificial shadows where there shouldn't be. Then the shades might get into the, they might pool and they might make really not nice looking finishes on the surface. Whereas when you start with Agrax Earthshade, you get a really good oily look, like machine oil. And you want to just spread it around. You don't want it to all stay in one place, of course. As with any shade, you don't want to overload your brush with it. You want just enough to get it going, spread it around. People who might have the easiest time painting these guys would be Necron players, because they're used to painting these all silver kind of color schemes. yeah, the bit about the fluff where they, you know, these guys are the ones that do the most back-breaking work. They sit in the back, they pound. Well, first they have to bring in their artillery and set everything up, supply lines, and just sit at the back for, you know, a long time, however long it takes to get everything all situated, set up, and squared away. And then they have to sit there, pound the enemy with artillery, and just kind of do all this unrewarding, just brain-jarringly numbing work at the back. And then finally, when the enemy's fortifications fall, then they get upstaged by whichever Primarch comes in with another legion to take all the glory. So you can kind of see where the resentment started from with these guys. An interesting thing too I read on the Lexicanum is that they use fortifications. So if Chaos gets a new bunch of fortifications out, or if you are very much into doing your own fortifications, then this would be a great army to have because of that, and to use that as one of the reasons. The great thing about Agrax Earthshade also is that because of the oily look it gives your metallics, it makes your models look older. Oh, my white mat. Makes your models look very old and ancient, a lot older than if you were just to shade it with known oil. Okay, now I'm gonna get started on the known oil. A new painting mat. Yep, so this is a great time to use those shades to color in any areas that you missed, get into all those pockets. Use your discretion as to how much you want to paint into various areas. As always, it's easier to not do too much wash and then add wash later if you feel you need it, rather than to just splatter puddles and puddles all over, and you get crazy little, you know, watermarks and stuff that takes a long time to fix. So there's our dirty looking Iron Warriors Warsmith for now. The last thing we're going to do for this phase is we're going to add Seraphim Sepia here and there. This is a little bit lighter than Agrax Earthshade, so it's going to create a very, very old machine oil kind of look. So you don't want to add it too much. You want to add it sparingly, but you do want to add it to like the Mechadendrites. Ooh. To a lot of these wires. At least I do. I mean, you might not want to, but I think it's cool. Check out, it gives this kind of almost greenish brown shade. It's definitely a brown shade, but it kind of tinges a bit on the green side, which I think is really awesome. Sickly looking. Okay, the next step is to wait. So we wait now. We're gonna come back to this guy. Maybe while we're waiting for this guy to dry, I'll do a standard Iron Warriors tutorial. Or we'll jump onto White Scars, which is Legion number 5. I don't know. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next one.